James was trapped in a soul-crushing teaching job. Every decision paralyzed him. Every morning felt like drowning. Then he discovered a 2,000-year-old technique used by the ancient Stoics that completely eradicated his chronic anxiety. This is that technique. I am James, and I'm about to show you something weird, but powerful. Instead of saying, I feel anxious, say, James feels anxious. Notice how that feels different, like less charged and more observational. That simple shift, talking about yourself in third person, is called Iliism, and it's about to change how you see your entire life. But first, let me tell you how I discovered it. I was burnt out teaching English in Taiwan, a job that was supposed to be temporary, but had become absolute drudgery. I tried to escape 3 times, only to fall back into the same cycles of depression, drinking, and this feeling that I'd never be enough. The problem was chronic anxiety, not the occasional worry. I mean the kind that makes every single decision feel impossible. Should I quit? Should I stay? Am I making the right choice? What if I fail again? I was consuming endless self-help content, buying courses, reading books, convinced that just one more piece of information would finally be the answer. Meanwhile, I wasn't creating anything. I was paralyzed. And every time I tried to escape, I'd run out of money, panic, and fall back into those old patterns. The 3rd time, I absolutely hit rock bottom. I blew up at my boss, lost my savings, and got evicted from my studio, and had to swallow my pride and beg for my job back. I was right back where I started, except now I was drowning in shame and convinced I'd never actually changed. Trapped in the same place I'd been for years. Working a job that drained me, struggling financially despite working myself to exhaustion, and no matter how hard I tried to make my dreams a reality, I'd never felt like I'd done enough. And to be honest, I never felt like I was enough. Hitting this wall meant giving up on my dream life of being a full-time artist and accepting that some people are just meant to stay stuck, that maybe I wasn't good enough or smart enough or strong enough to even make a change in my life. But then something shifted. I stumbled across a concept that completely flipped my understanding of transformation. I realized that I'd been approaching everything backwards. I was trying to become my ideal self, waiting to be ready, to have it all figured out, to be good enough first. I was forcing myself to become the person I wanted to be, making myself eat healthy, go to the gym, and meditate twice a day. But it was hard. The way I saw myself didn't match the identity I wanted to embody. I told myself that I was lazy, that I wasn't creative enough, that I was too angry about my life to enjoy it. But when a mentor of mine told me to list out all the attributes of someone I admire, I was shocked at the list staring back at me. Highly creative, calm, peaceful, takes action and doesn't bemoan their circumstances, willing to change and work hard. This list wasn't just traits that I admired. These were attributes I already possessed. I realized that I sometimes already embody these attributes, and when I do, not only does my anxiety disappear, but I also begin to love myself, which is a huge revelation because it made me understand why I often hate myself too. It's because I'm not embodying these attributes I'm capable of. It's less to do with my outside circumstances and more about the way I see myself. Realizing that I was already that person meant I just needed to start making those choices that they would make right now in this moment. I began to create a vivid image of this person in my mind, visualizing myself as the person who embraces all of these attributes that I admire. I was beginning to look at myself from the outside. This third-person perspective was like watching a character in a movie, and very quickly it became clear what I had to do. I didn't need to force myself to become that person, but simply to recognize that those traits are already within me in each present moment. I didn't have to wait, I didn't have to meditate or read more books. I simply had to hold the image in my mind and ask, what would James do? This gentle redirect gave me clarity on everything from choosing my lunch to making business plans. I didn't always choose what James would do, but I stopped judging myself for that too. Sometimes I would say, James would do that, but I'm going to do this. So even when I made choices that didn't align with the person that I wanted to be, I no longer felt guilty or anxious that I'd made the wrong decision. I accepted that this is where James is right now and he's making progress. I didn't know it at the time, but what I discovered was an ancient technique called Iliism. Iliism is the practice of referring to yourself in third person. Instead of, I feel anxious, you say, James feels anxious. It sounds simple, maybe even silly and a bit pretentious, but the research is stunning. Studies by psychologist Igor Grossman at the University of Waterloo show that people who practice Iliism demonstrate greater intellectual humility, better perspective taking, increased emotional regulation, and wiser decision making under pressure. Why? Because when you step outside yourself, even linguistically, you create psychological distance from your emotions. You can see the bigger picture instead of drowning in the feeling. The ancient Stoics practiced it, and Eastern religions considered it a sign of enlightenment. And I accidentally stumbled onto it while trying to escape my job. And my life changed drastically. I moved from chronic anxiety to deep peace. Not because my circumstances had changed overnight, but because I stopped being so entangled in my emotions. When James feels scared about money, I could ask, what would the calm, trusting version of James do here? The answer was always clear. I went from forcing and efforting to flowing and trusting. Instead of white-knuckling my way through decisions, I could observe myself like a character in a story and make choices that detached perspective. I cut my hours at work, I moved to a smaller studio, and I achieved financial stability while working less. I wasn't constantly second-guessing every decision out of fear. I simplified my life because from that third-person perspective view, these choices were obviously aligned. The chronic inadequacy that had defined my entire adult life had gone. Not because I finally became someone different, but because I recognized I was already the person I wanted to be. So, how do you practice Iliism? I've distilled it into a 5-step process. Step 1, you need to define your ideal self and the attributes they have. Not the results, not the lifestyle, but their qualities. Are they calm, creative, decisive, authentic? Write these down in detail. Then, in step 2, you speak about yourself in third person. When you're facing a decision or feeling overwhelmed, literally saying to yourself, your name feels anxious about this project, or your name is worried about what others will think. Notice how that creates space between you and the emotion. Then step 3, you can ask the question, what would the version of your name who embodies these attributes choose right now? Not, what should I do? But what would they choose? Then step 4, make the choice without attachment. You don't always have to choose what your ideal self would choose. The practice isn't about being perfect. It's about awareness. Sometimes you'll choose differently, and that's fine. Just notice it. And in step 5, you treat life as a canvas. Every choice becomes a brushstroke. You're not trying to arrive somewhere. You're creating in real time, enjoying the process of painting your life. This technique is deceptively simple, but it's not easy. Your brain will resist. You'll forget to do it. You'll feel silly about talking to yourself in third person. That's why I've created the 5-day Ideal Self Intensive, a free one-on-one coaching experience where I guide you through exactly how to apply Iliism and the Ideal Self method to your specific situation. I'm not going to give you generic advice and no courses to buy. It's just you and me for 5 days of focused work to help you embody the person that you already are. So if you're an artist or creative stuck in work that drains you, paralyzes you by fear, and you're consuming instead of creating, then this is for you. The application is in the description. It takes 2 minutes to fill out, and if we're a good fit, we can start immediately. I want to help as many people as possible, but since it's one-on-one, I can only take on a few people at a time. So if this video resonated with you, go and apply, or watch this video next where I go deeper into how to be your ideal self. Thanks for watching. I'll see you in the next one.